Hello, welcome along to episode 4 of the Football Pod. Andy Moran, Paddy Andrews, welcome along, boys.
Good to be here, guys. 4 weeks, week 4. We're happy to be here.
It's going all right.
Good afternoon, lads. It's going great, yeah.
Paddy, you missed the sun last week in Castlebar. Andy Moran got a tan.
I didn't miss the sun. I missed Castlebar, but I was having a good little weekend myself here in Dublin, so it was nice to get out and enjoy it all right. But it was great, wasn't it? Jesus. Country came alive once the sun comes out, as always, so good crack.
We needed it.
There was a famous street that there was rumours that Paddy Andrews was in last week up in Dublin, but I can't. Can you confirm or deny, Patrick?
I'm not going to lie. I had a few pints all right in the city centre after work on Friday. I managed to avoid Tony Houlihan somehow, thank God. We'd have gotten an earful, but no, it was great. There was a buzz around the city centre, which was cool. I wasn't on South William Street now. I can confirm I put my empty pints in the bin after I was finished with it. But no, I enjoyed the sunshine. Would have loved to have been in Castlebar, lads. But by all accounts, from you two guys, I didn't miss much. A bit of a trial game feel to it, was it?
Yeah, it was an odd one, Andy, wasn't it?
I was very much so. It was funny because me and Tommy talked before the game, and I kind of predicted, as my predictions usually go wrong, but I predicted that James Horan would drop 5 or 6 from the starting lineup that was named, and it was actually completely the opposite. Andy McEntee played. Andy McEntee dropped the 5 or 6. He dropped McEntee, Kyogan, Hernan, and then the whole full forward line. And Mayo,
all the best players,
yeah, they're 6 best players. That's basically what he did. And the Horn played. We had a lot of changes, but I think we just have a bigger strength and depth than Meath do. And it was a trial game kind of feel to it. Mayo played quite well. When Meath brought on their half-back line, they actually played quite well. So it was just it's hard to know what to make of it, really.
So you're telling me you made the right call by going for a few pints in town instead of going over to Castlebar to watch a training match?
Yeah, a few pints and a bit of gardening might have been the right call, you know.
On a normal weekend, on a normal year, Paddy, or in the next few weeks, where's your favourite spot in Dublin to grab a couple of pints?
I had the fortune of working on Dawson Street there for years. I'm just around the corner for Fitzwilliam Square now, so there's loads of good spots around there, and it's gas now the last couple of weeks. All the pedestrianised stuff, and Dublin City Council are out getting everything set up, so I'm partial to Kyo's, I have to say, there on South Anne Street. Some good nights there. We didn't get many of them when you were playing, which was always the drawback. You could never get outside for pints in the summer, but hopefully make up for it now in the next few months. Now a bit more time to yourself.
Did the Mayo boys have a safe haven they could go to, Andy, when they were in Dublin?
The boys did. No, I wasn't. I was down the road, probably wife and kids at that stage. So I wasn't. I wasn't the main party instigator. Now every now and then I'd take off. Now back in 07, 08, it was a different story.
It was like Mick Jagger back then.
Yeah. But then I met yoga and Zen and all this sort of crack, and I used to go home. A little sneaky McDonald's on the way down the road might have been my treat. You know?
A happy meal, lovely.
Chicken nuggets, yeah.
Yeah, so look, it was a funny weekend of football, I suppose. I won't get into where I like going for a pint in Dublin, but we'll come back to that. But it was a funny weekend of football because, as you said, Meath made 10 changes, Mayo made 10 changes. It was very hard to get a read in it. Kerry held off Roscommon. The Dubs had a late surge against Galway. Clare, I suppose, if they had held on to the ball in injury time against Cork, if they'd played a bit of keep ball, they may have ended up in a semi-final, a playoff for Division 1 against Meath instead of Mayo. And obviously Kildare came through, so it's Kildare and Meath in the Division 2 semi-final as well.
Yeah.
So there's no football this weekend. There will be football the following weekend. So I think next week we'll start our proper build-up. But at this stage, when you're looking for, would you be looking at those games, the Division 1 semi-finals, you could say? And would you be excited for them, or would you be thinking the teams are going to hold back a bit at this stage of the summer?
I'm really looking forward to Division 1 games. I have to say that they're the ones we spoke about at the start. You probably couldn't hand-pick 2 better games at the start of the National League. Dublin to play Donegal. A lot of people have been waiting for this game. I know it's not the championship, but it's probably the closest thing you're going to get, particularly this season. Look, we might touch on it. The end of the leagues is going to be a bit of a farce, that there's no league finals for probably all the divisions, which is a bit strange. So I think a lot of teams will use this game as their last hit out before they go into championship, and Dublin and Donegal is going to be a brilliant game. Unlikely that, however it may be, that you might see Michael Murphy. He'll be a huge loss for Donegal, but I know Declan Bonner will be looking to use that and see where this team at. And from my experience and all my years playing with Dublin, I think Dublin are going to go flat to the mat in that game. They won't be resting guys. So that's a brilliant game. And then Tyrone and Kerry, it's brilliant. It's probably looking forward to that even more. Kerry have a bit of pep in their step after their comeback against Dublin. They're back to playing their traditional way, and Tyrone are trying to come down and play this kick pass and attacking game, and it'll be a real signal to see where Tyrone are at. Because like if you look at it on paper, you'd probably say Kerry are the second best team in the country, behind Dublin, and for Tyrone to come down there, it will be a huge boost to their coaching team and their new style of play if they go and beat Kerry there. So, and that's just Division 1. Like there's some brilliant games. Like Meath and Kildare is going to be fascinating to see where they're at going into the Leinster Championship. The fairy tale story: can Clare get into Division 1? Can Offaly be promoted under John Mahon to Division 2? There's some great stories for the National League. So really, really looking forward to those games next weekend. Yeah,
I'd be the same, Tommy. I think it's like the 4 games in Division 1, so the 2 relegation playoffs, I think are really exciting. We haven't mentioned, but Galway have really came around since the hiding they got down Tralee. Really good performance against Roscommon. Decent performance last week against Dublin. I thought showed a nice bit of bite. Sean Kelly, very important to them. I think he's an unusual style, and he kind of brings the ball out for them. But he's aggressive, and he kind of leads the line in their defensive line, which I think gives them a huge chance. So Galway Monaghan is an interesting one, because one of those we want to break in. So I think whichever one wins, I think will give us a good indication on that. The Galway or the Roscommon Armagh game is very interesting. If you're looking on paper, Armagh win that game every day. But if you look at the history of the teams, Roscommon have a really good record against that Armagh team over the last couple of years in Division 2 and little bits like that. So they went to, I think after the lockdown last year, Roscommon go up to Armagh, beat them up there. So they have a really good record. So that's not a foregone conclusion.
I think it's an important one, Andy, as well, just on it. Like Armagh have waited so long to get into Division 1, and they've played really well. Like their opening day, really impressive against Monaghan. Unlucky to lose the Tyrone game, I suppose. Like for them to go back down to Division 2 would feel like a bit of a kick in the teeth.
It would.
For McGeaney. So like we've touched on Roscommon, my thoughts, they go up, they get relegated, they go up, they get relegated. I think it's a big game for Armagh. If you want to get a couple of years, like Tommy, you were saying last week, even Meade's 1 year of experience in Division 1 was a huge benefit for them. For Armagh to kind of step up to the next level and become, real Ulster title contenders and stuff, you really need to be in the Division 1. Monaghan spent years in Division 1 and they ended up winning a couple of Ulster titles. I think it'd be a setback for McGeaney going into the championship and his players if they lose that game to Roscommon. I expect Armagh to win, but I'm sure there'll be a couple of upsets next weekend.
And I think this is where Poacher's really going to come into his own for Roscommon. He'd have seen all them young Armagh players playing through the school structure, right through. So he knows them inside out. So let's see, can Roscommon push on? In the 2 semi-finals then, see, I don't think it's catastrophic for either Tyrone or Donegal to lose. It's how they lose. And if Donegal were waiting for them, missing each other, like ships in the night there the last couple of years, Donegal and Dublin, Paddy was calling for it. Last year, everyone was calling for it. They really wanted to see this athleticism of this Donegal team against the athleticism of the Dublin team. Let's see now, can they go and compete? Should they beat Dublin without Murphy? Absolutely not. But can they go and compete and really be in the last 50 to 70 minutes? Can they be still in the game and see, can they push them on? I think that's important. I don't think it's that important that they beat them, but I think it's important that they're competitive. Tyrone Kerry the same. We'll see now, are Tyrone the real deal or not? How close can they get? If they get within 3 or 4 points, Kerry lads, and it's a really competitive game, Tyrone will know, okay, we're 3 months into our schedule.
There's progress, exactly.
And there's huge progress. If we meet these in September or August time, listen, we have a right rattle here. So I think they're really exciting games. The John Mahon one, just to give Offaly a special mention as well, lads, was speaking to John Mahon at the game on Sunday, Tommy. He was going into the radio show I did just after, and Road had a really, really hard week last week. The death of their young goalkeeper last week, and John was just explaining the Road players were on their knees, like from it, and the way they performed last week to get that McNamee coming on, scoring 4 or 5 points. I think it's testament to that team, and I think the energy they showed and what they have done, and I know Mahon, he'll fill them with energy as well, and I think that the progress they're making is really exciting for them.
Yeah, no, it's unreal, and it's great to see it. And just when you mentioned Niall McNamee there, the endurance levels or the ability to extend your career so long, like the likes of Niall McNamee playing football for the last 18, 19 years, intercounty football. Even David Tubridy, it was great to see him again.
Yeah.
I don't
Top
know what you
scorer
guys...
in National League history.
Yeah,
I
don't know whether you guys...
I couldn't believe that. That's unbelievable. What an unbelievable longevity and performance and consistency. And that's why, like, I loved the National League. Absolutely loved it when I was a player. Games every week, playing in different stadiums, different crowds, playing different teams that you might come across in the championship. And even this year, the ending isn't going to be great. And that's a separate point for the GAA and the scheduling. I know it's hard with the COVID and things like that. But look at Clare under Colin Collins to potentially 7-8 years in a row to get to Division 1. What an amazing achievement that would be.
Get out. Can't happen.
Oh, sorry for Mayo, but what a story that would. You're used to being Andy. Mayo's the fairy tale team. For once, it's not going to be used. Everyone's going to be hoping. Derry under Rory Gallagher coming through.
Brilliant.
And the McGinley going to Antrim. Antrim win the
Yes.
first 3 games, and all of a sudden they get promoted. Brilliant stories like that. And we touched on it last week when we were talking about the Leinster Championship and kind of it was becoming a dead rubber and things like that over the last number of years. But what you're seeing here is teams maximising their potential. Are Antrim going to win the Ulster Championship? Probably not. But Enda McGinley's gone in, and their players know that. And that's hard for players because in GAA, the championship is everything. But success for Enda McGinley is get promotion with Antrim. Same for John Mahon. He's gone in there. Offaly football's been on its knees from like a really traditional county, a great pass for them, but they've been in the doldrums, and Offaly aren't going to win the Leinster Championship. Like, they're not. As good as it's going for them, you know, the shadow of Dublin is hanging over that. So what success? What keeps Niall McNamee coming back for 18, 19 years? It's that passion for Offaly, and John Mahon has them flying it, get promoted, maybe get into a Leinster semi-final, maybe you get to a Leinster final. That's progress. And it's not the case of sitting going, oh, well, Dublin are going to win the Leinster Championship, so what's the point?
Yeah, and
it's an attitude of maximising the potential, and you see loads of teams in all the divisions doing it, and that's why it's brilliant to see. And so there'll be some great stories from next weekend to look forward to.
And Paddy, just on that, like for the likes of myself that played for Mayo and the likes of Paddy who played for Dublin, we always had a goal. So our goal has been the same since 1951. Your goal is everyone is fighting on the same line to win the All-Ireland, right? Yeah. Unfortunately for the likes of myself and players before me, it didn't happen. Paddy's goal, once they'd won 2, they wanted to win the 3rd one. They had a goal, and it was always... So you're looking at McNamee and Tubridy and all these guys. In one way, it's easier because they're not in the spotlight all the time. But another way, like, they have to set out a goal that's not winning the highest prize. Do you know what I'm saying? So to have that longevity throughout your career, I think is amazing. And I love the fact that Tubridy got credit for what he's done this week over the scoring in the league. And I'm glad someone actually stated that. And I love the fact that people like ourselves are looking at Niall McNamee, even though mid to late 30s, he's wearing white boots. He's
puts me to shame. Like,
yeah.
I should still be out there.
But he's coming on kicking 4 points to win the game for Offaly. I think it's amazing, and credit to John Mahon and Colin Collins for using these guys in the right way.
Yeah.
McNamee coming on for 20. Can you imagine Tip getting into the game, closing the gap, and then probably Offaly's best player comes on to kill you. So it's really smart management, but really big credit to all the players that have done that over the years. I think it's massive, and I echo what Paddy says about the league. I think it just gives these guys the chance to shine, and it's lovely.
When you talk there about maximising potential and setting your own goals, I think you can break it down to even club football. Like, a junior club can only win their junior championship in that season, and any group of players who are sitting down together. And I've been in so many meetings over the years where you're sitting down in November and you're saying, next year's going to be the year that we're going to do it. I think I think no matter what sport you played or what wrestling you're
at
in,
any level,
it's all about a collective movement to try and get to a certain stage. So, like, whatever progress means for these counties, it's great to see Offaly doing. Like, because when we talk about it, like, Cavan and Tipperary had hit such heights last year out of absolutely nowhere. And the emotion and the joy that was expressed was absolutely remarkable. Fair enough, this year they've had it tough in the league. It's been a tough league. Three games. You lose the first one, you've lost a bit of momentum. But then you just see Offaly, and they're just flying through it this year, and it's great to see it. Just on the stats, this is a bit of a tangent here, but it's always been a gripe of mine, and I'm sure other people as well, that we don't have a proper database of stats in the GAA. Myself and a college mate actually spent about 12 months, 18 months gathering statistics from loads of different matches over about 12 years. We've got a bit of a database built up, but nothing full. but it's never properly been done in the GAA. Did that matter? Did that ever matter? Like, Killian O'Connor has racked up unbelievable scores, but it's hard to know where he actually stands in the pantheon of all-time greats. Like, when you see them in America, it means so much, statistics in American sports. Did that ever matter in the GAT? Would it be something that you'd ever be bothered by?
Well, Mayo was that. Sorry, Paddy.
I was never in the mix to get stats. I was never in the mix for records anyway. So no, it definitely didn't bother me. But maybe it did for guys who were going for scoring titles and stuff. But no, I can tell you, in any years I was playing, that was never once mentioned ever. Yeah. It's just not really, like I say, it's just not a part of the culture and stuff like that. But I agree with Andy. I was surprised. Normally, like in other sports, if someone's going for top scorer, like the Premier League Golden Boot, it's the only thing you hear about. They're talking about it all the time. So that's always very refreshing to see.
There was no word of Tubridy beforehand. It was just
no at all.
You know?
And then the GPA put out the tweet, and I was like, Jesus, that is something to be very proud of. But like I said, I was never in the mix for them, so I never really minded.
Take him to, no, we'll just make an edit here. I might even cut that out because I that was probably a bit of a tangent for me there. Are you all right in battery, Paddy?
Have it plugged in this week?
Go on.
Plugged in after last week's shambles.
No bother.
Sorry, lads.
You're okay.
All right,
I nearly had a Paddy Andrews effort there.
We're just saying.
Yeah.
I'm overcharged this week.
Yeah, so no, it's just on the stat side of it. Like we'd have crazy lunatics kind of following us all the time that have kept stats on appearances, FBDs, leagues, championship, and there's a great pub actually, Paddy, if you're ever in Castlebar, called Mick Burns. It's a famous pub in the middle of the town, and he brought out a book actually with all the statistics of who played FBD games, league games, championship games, all through the years. So yeah, some people do it, other people don't, and it's they're not really comparable in the GAA, really, because we keep changing what we're doing. So if you look at what Killian and Dean Rock have done, they're probably comparable because they've played the same amount of games. But if you're comparing them to Mikey Sheehy, or you're comparing them to...
it's only 2 or 3 games.
Jimmy Kearney or any of them guys, Jimmy Keaveney, or any of them guys, they've played way less games. So what's comparable? But I do think it's lovely to see the likes of Tubridy, and when someone reaches the top scorer, the 100 caps or something like that, I do think it's nice to recognise them things for players as well.
Yeah, because Dean Rock obviously won an accolade last year. He became Dublin's top scorer of all time last October as well. So yeah, no, it's great to see. I just think it's something that we should I suppose care a bit more about, and just we should have those records on paper. Wishy Fogarty's Terrace Talk would have always been a great resource as well over the years to carry boys. So maybe it's something to do with being down the country that they cared a bit more about the FBD leagues or whatever. But maybe that's me just being a culture. I don't know.
Or maybe we're just mad. We're just mad in the head.
Before we get into our league,
let you say that.
Yeah.
Before we get into our league review, lads, I've asked you both to pick a team of the league, and we've a couple of other questions that we're going to get stuck into as well. A bit of news that caught the eye this week: Philly McMahon is joined Bohemians Football Club as a performance coach. Paddy, a teammate of yours, what do you think Philly will bring to the dressing room of Bohemians?
It was interesting to see it. Obviously, I know that their season has kind of kicked off already in the middle of it. So I think it always catches the eye when it's someone from a different sport steps into that side of things as well. So look, Philly's had an amazing career off the pitch in terms of his strength and conditioning and the studies he's done, and obviously runs his own gym similar to what Andy's doing as well. So it is an interesting one. And the biggest thing I would say for any coach going into a new dressing room, and this is true of any sport, with a GAA dressing room and there's 35 lads there, or Philly going into a Bohs dressing room and there's slightly less with soccer, maybe 20, 25 players. The first thing you have to overcome is, I'd call it like the credibility test, that you're going in there before you can get into your nuts and bolts and how you're going to help the team. You need to go in there and show them kind of what you're about. And the big benefit for Philly is that he has such a high profile, even if there's 20 guys there to play with Bohs and they're not GAA supporters and they don't really follow Philly's career and like that, they'll know of the Dublin football team. They live here in the city. They train over in DCU. Like I say, they'll be aware of this really successful team that he's been a part of. They might even be aware of Philly's profile outside of that, a lot of kind of charity work he does and success he's had away from the pitch. So that gives Philly a leg up that straight away he can go in there and the guys are going to be like, right, we're kind of interested. This guy is from a really high performing successful sports team. And even though it's a different sport, their interest is going to be perked with that. And that's a big thing for any coach going into a new dressing room, because I've seen it with Dublin, and as humble as guys are and as nice a group of lads as they are, when a coach comes in, you'll give out, you'll talk about, you make a first impression straight off the bat. And if that isn't a good impression, the coach is kind of fighting an uphill struggle straight from the get-go. And the football dressing rooms are ruthless. We've had guys come into us with Dublin, and it's like, this just hasn't worked from the get-go. It's like, it's not a good fit. And that's probably harsh, because the coach has come in and he hasn't even got to get down and get into the nuts and bolts of what he does. But that's the benefit that Philly has. He probably has a really high credibility with those guys already. And then the second thing then, and this is the most fundamental thing for any coach or performance analyst or anything like that, is he going to make the players better? That's your bottom job as a coach. You can get caught up in tactics and all the fancy stuff. Your role is to make the players you're coaching better. And what Philly can do, I doubt he's going to be going in talking about tactics or technical skills, because that's not his background at soccer. But if you're a Bohemians player and you go to him, well, you can definitely talk to him about preparation, dealing with pressure, high performance, playing in big matches and things like that. Even though it's a different sport, like the bottom line with elite sport, it's competition. And you got to go out and you got to beat the other guy. So that doesn't change whether it's in tennis, it's basketball, rugby, it's Soccer-GAA. You got to compete and be mentally prepared to beat your opposition. And Philly obviously has an amazing experience of doing that over years. So in things like that, I think you'll add huge value to Bohs and to their players. But like, I'd be surprised if he's talking about the offside trap and the technical side of things. But no, it's a great appointment, I'd say, and great for Philly as well, obviously. Yeah.
Did Philly talk much in the dressing room?
He would have, yeah. Yeah, he definitely would have. He would have talked in the dressing room, would have spoke on the pitch as well. But he's such an amazing background and a story, and it's just his character as well. Like he would have spoke very much so. I'll tell you a funny thing. Like, we're talking about man-on-man defenders nowadays. Philly never wanted to do that. Philly was the lad calling for everyone to get back. Philly is calling for Bernard Brogan to come back and defend, and we're looking back and we're going, "No, pal, you're on your own back there." So things like that. That's kind of.
He never said anything to the opposition.
Yeah, and he never spoke to Andy. Yeah, and I tell you, Andy and Aidan O'Shea could probably tell you more about it. But no, he would have been a big leader. Obviously, you could see that in his persona and things like that. So that's the type of thing Bohs would be getting. And like I say, it's interesting when someone from a different sport tries to cross over. But there's so much what you're dealing with is elite sport and competition, and Philly has a huge background in that and being successful in that. So of course you can add value to players in that regard.
Andy, I'm waiting for you.
No, I'm
he's biting his tongue there.
No, I'm just thinking it's an amazing crossover. I think it's brilliant. I love to see it, and I love to. What I think the key skill, and Paddy's nailed it, is we know Niamh Fitzpatrick from sports. She came in with us in 2017, and immediately she caught the attention of the group. It was just one of those ones, Paddy, that kind of just fitted the group perfectly. But we've had the opposite. Where
it's unbelievable, isn't it?
And you kind of know it straight. Like sometimes some people just have the skill, and sometimes they just fit in with the group really nicely. And that happens. But I do like the crossover. I think the most important thing about the crossover, if I was thinking about it, is that you absolutely know your place and you know your role within it. So if Philly's going in as a performance coach or a psychologist or an S&C, whatever he's going in as, that he knows that role straight away. And I think where it gets crossed, what I've seen in Gaelic football over the time, if someone comes in as an S&C coach and they'll be talking to you how to play corner forward, and you're looking at them,
100%. Yeah.
Get out. So he won't be going in there talking about offside traps or anything like that. He'd be going in doing his specific role. And within that, I think anything that he's probably done in his career so far, he's probably high achieved that. So fair play to him. I think it's exciting.
It's so funny you say that, Andy, and Tommy. This kind of goes across the board with GAA. We would experience a lot with Dublin. People come in and they might be like a guest speaker, like a motivational talk and things like that. And we would have people in over the years who were brilliant sports people, like quite high profile sports people. And you're thinking, this is going to be class. I'd love to kind of get a bit of background in this. And it wasn't. It mightn't have been as good as you thought it would have been. And it's just, sometimes it just doesn't work. And then we had some, like Jim Gavin was great for this. Like he'd bring people in completely off the wall. You'd be going, where is he going with this? Like we would have had musicians or comedians or something like that come into us and talk to us, and they talk about pressure and performance and stuff, nothing to do with GAA, nothing to do with even sport. And they were amazing. Like, and you were going and you're sitting there and they go, this is who's coming in to talk to us. And you're going, what? Where in God's name is he going with this? Yeah. And they were brilliant. So it's just, it's amazing. You get to see both sides of it. And a lot of it comes down to the personality. And a lot of it just comes down to their actual experiences. And it's not going to be specific. Like someone coming in talking to us, they haven't won All-Irelands or played in All-Ireland finals, but that doesn't matter. But they've performed under pressure. And they've...
Anyone stand out, Paddy?
Well, we had a good couple, yeah. Like we would have had kind of a couple of musicians, definitely, who we thought they were going to come in and just play a few tunes, and it would have been great. But they were actually amazing outside of that. We had a couple of interesting ones. We always said we wouldn't say who they were.
Okay, but, that's fair. That's fair.
But it's just funny what Andy says, because it's so common. It is that you get some guys and it just doesn't work for whatever reason, you know. And then, like I say, on the other side of things, you could have someone coming in and just they're brilliant. It's just a link. So that's what Philly's obviously going to be trying to do over there with Bohs. He has the experience and the knowledge and stuff. Like I say, as Andy said, he's a high achiever anyway. So I'm sure he'll be able to rub off at some of those guys.
Yeah, I think the big thing about fellas like Philly and physios and strength and conditioning coaches and all these guys, if you think about it, they probably spend more time with players than anybody else in the group. Because an S&C coach, they're in the gym with you, it's probably one-on-one, or it's 1-on-6, or you have a group with you. You would never have 30 with you. Physio, you're half an hour lying on a bed if you can get it, and so they're basically, you're telling them your problems, like with everything, and they're just listening. So if you go in there with a real open, like, I think you need to be really guarded not to be giving your own opinions, but you have to be a really good listener on top of it. And I think if you have that, I think you're halfway there.
What about the culture of a soccer dressing room? Do they hold the GAAs high enough stock? You've both kind of been in and around it. Andy, you were telling a story last week of telling one of your teammates to go off and watch Kieran Mack, and he was blown away by it.
Well, I think the stock question is a good question, because where Philly comes from, Ballymun, again, I'm talking but I'm just listening to what Philly has said in the past about Ballymun and the troubles they had growing up and stuff like that. And an awful lot of soccer, we know, like I lived in a council estate myself, we did nothing but play soccer, and this is where soccer has kind of grown from. So Philly will know the troubles of an awful lot of these players and where they've come from and what they've done and how they've done so well to achieve to get to that position. So I think Philly McMahon will have no problem with his stock even away from the game. Never mind what he's done. In the soccer dressing room. I remember this only happened about twice, but I was called into the senior squad twice for Longford the time I was there, and you had to come in a suit. You probably remember this from Moran, Paddy. You had to come in a suit to the game.
Yeah, all I hear. Louis Kaufman, Roddy Collins.
I'm a tracksuits man. I'm a tracksuits man all day long, right? So this dressing room, like, it's full of dubs, and I go down to this shop in Longford. I say, I need a suit, and they go, what? I said, I need to play with the boys. So he said, they're all wearing this. So I wear these grey slacks that could only be described as flares, right?
Lovely. Sounds good.
Wait to hear this, Paddy. Wait to hear this. I'm still mortified about it, but I wear a black shirt and I wear a white tie. I'm 19 years of age. I'm 19 years of age.
Oh, good Lord.
And do you know Vinnie Perth, that's like, he wouldn't remember me, but Vinnie Perth is captain of the team. There's a guy called Digger O'Brien there, two boys, and I literally walked into it and I just get murdered for half an hour. And I was sitting on the guy with the crack, lads. It was brilliant for about 3 weeks. It was nearly my introduction to the team. The boys kind of half liked me afterwards because I looked so bad,
Black shirt and white tie.
Bad.
Top class.
Yeah, but I still can't dress myself, to be honest with you. So,
Paddy, you're a good man for a suit. Tell us about Monaghan United. What was that like down there? You told us that it's transfer deadline day, signing one year.
Yeah, I'd like.
I don't know if I've ever believed this. Did this really happen?
No, it's true. This is true. Yeah, I signed with the Rod squad in 2011 that summer. Do you know that? Like, you hear, I signed at the back of a smoke pack. I was not far off that. Like, I would have known Roddy since I was a kid. Like, and Roddy, I would say, is like the Irish Harry Redknapp. Just a character. Like, players love. You spend 30 seconds in Roddy's company, I swear you'll have enough material for a laugh for about 6 months. He's box office. He's real Dublin, old school, traditional kind of soccer guy. And he came across, and I was like, Roddy, listen, I haven't played soccer since I was 13, 14, like 7 or 8 years ago. I'll be useless. He goes, don't worry about that, Pat. We'll find a position for you. And his whole attitude was like, it's funny, it was like a soccer attitude of the GAA. It was like, I'm sure you'll be fit, you'll have a horrendous touch, but we can put you like centre half and you'll be able to kick a few fellas. And he wasn't far wrong in that. But that was kind of it's funny back then, and this has changed so much. The attitude from soccer to GAA was like, that's for country people. GAA, it's just kind of, there's no skill, there's no tactics, they're all ball, they call it in Dublin. Like, and the same from GAA, we'd look at it and go, the soccer guys are all soft, they're all, you know, they don't work hard, they don't have a hard mentality and things like that. But the change in that even over the last 4 or 5 years, the amount GAA, and we're talking about tactical innovation, stuff like that, and Andy touching on it, kind of praising the northern teams are always seem to be the forefront of innovations of the game. The amount GAA has learned from soccer over the last 5-10 years in terms of tactics and things like that. I think that the old school, the stereotype of the teams not getting on and soccer and GAA being separate, I think there's a healthy respect there now that soccer people can see, particularly in Dublin, with the success the Dublin team have had, kind of what a bit more understanding of what the GAA is about. And GAA people generally, younger generations definitely love soccer. We all follow soccer. It might have been an old school thing where kind of a legacy thing where older people didn't the foreign game and didn't want to get involved in it. But the influence of soccer tactics on GAA now, particularly over the last 5 or so years, is huge. And it's been such a benefit to the game. Like,
yeah, it's developed an unbelievable amount. And you know, we talk about the gegenpressing that we've kind of spoken about a few times. Not really. I know you don't really buy it, Andy. The heavy metal football, is that what we called it in the paper?
I didn't buy the way Big JB was described.
It's because he just doesn't get on with Bradley. Like, if someone else said it,
I actually do, to be honest.
The Dubs love Bradley, though, don't they, Paddy?
But you're
do we?
Yeah, you love Bradley.
Oh, do we? Okay.
I thought you did.
I don't know. Maybe they do. Yeah.
Yeah, but we actually get on all right. But it's just, I was reading it, like, you're wrong. Like, but I do absolutely buy what Paddy was saying. The press, and like you're looking at Armagh not pressing the kick out at the minute. I don't buy for 1 minute that when it comes to the first round of the championship game, that Donny isn't going to have them pushed on into the corner. You know, that they're going to be really squeezing the kick it out to Charlie O'Burns and Grimley and these guys and let them jump for it. I don't buy that for a second. So I think the press side of it is going to be huge. I think Dublin's huge advantage, and there is advantages there, but the advantage in football in terms was that the Jason Sherlock, who wasn't afraid to, you know, bring a bit of basketball into it, bring a bit of soccer into it, and that mix of stuff, like how do you do basketball defense? You go full court press, you go zonal defense around your key, like, you know, and it's the same.
It's unbelievable, Andy. If you look even 10 years ago, keeper before Cluxton say keeper kicks the ball out, it's out to the middle, 2 big lads compete. You're defending a kick out, the 6 forwards just go to their 6 positions. The change from that is from soccer and basketball. Like, Kerry used to play against us, and they put 4 guys in the full forward line, they put 4 guys in their half forward line, and they have 4 guys across the middle. So they just completely pressed, blocked out the zones. That's like a soccer tactic in terms of, like, you're talking about Klopp, what he does with Liverpool, push up and try and set a trap for someone. They were trying to do that to get the better Clucko.
That was 2019, was it?
It's been going on for longer than that, but 2019 is when it was kind of obvious to everyone, but Kerry would have done that with us. Jim McGuinness famously caught us out with Dublin in 2014. We were playing just man on man. We were like total football. We were just going to attack. Jim McGuinness could see that. All of a sudden, they started dragging us out of positions. Big Neil Gallagher midfield was suddenly playing full forward, and Michael Dermacauli's playing full back, kind of looking around going, what the hell is that? That's like soccer tactics in terms of moving opposition around. You look at Donegal, we touched on it in their first game against Tyrone this year in the league when they beat them 18-16. The second half, Tyrone's defence all sit in the middle of the pitch. So Donegal are soloing up the pitch, and Paddy McBrearty, Kieran Thompson, Michael Lang, they're all just standing on the sidelines. That's a basketball tactic. They're blocking the basket or the goal in Tyrone's case. So Donegal set up along the arcs and they're working the ball, and McBrearty or Thompson kicks a brilliant score just coming off the loop. That would be unheard of in GAA 10 years ago, because the GAA was so insular. I don't want to hear about soccer. That's soft. I don't want to hear about basketball. What are you talking about basketball for? But the open-mindedness and the kind of growth mindset of coaches all over the country. Dublin did it. We were fortunate. We had someone like Mayo who was amazing. Kerry with their kick-out tactics. Look at what Donegal are doing. McGuinness. Every county is adapting to this. Yeah. Whereas 20 years ago, soccer was forgettable. GAA was traditional. This is the way we're playing. And there's so many teams doing it. Even look, we're talking about shooting efficiency and shooting accuracy. Dublin worked the ball around the arc to the best shooter. Clare at the weekend. Colin Collins has Clare doing it. David Tubridy is getting the ball. He's the shooter. Get the ball to the shooter. And that's from basketball. Like I read a great book after Kobe Bryant died. There was a book called Three Ring Circus about the LA Lakers. And like 3-point shooting wasn't really a thing, but traditionally basketball was work the ball up to the basket, get a slam dunk. And all of a sudden, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant come along, Steph Curry now, 3-point is all the rage. And they're working, their whole team is built around getting him the ball for 3-pointers. And that was just a tactical innovation. And it's come into GAA now. Like you're saying, why is shooting accuracy so high? Because teams are working the ball to the best shooter. Kerry get the ball to David Clifford. They literally hand him the ball. Yeah. Sean O'Shea could take shots if he wanted to. You can see it with the Clare and Cork game at the weekend. Clare have backs coming up the pitch and they're looking around. And 10 years ago, they'd take the shot themselves. But it's tactics. Who's our shooter? Where do we get it to in the most advantageous position? We said about Donegal working the ball to McBrearty. This is all tactics from other sports. Coaches being more open-minded. Players coming to coaches going, I see this in soccer. I've seen this in basketball. I've seen this in rugby. There's so much to learn from other sports. And that's the big benefit that GAA has gone through over the last 5-10 years. And
there's a sacrifice to it, Paddy, because that famous game you mentioned, 2014, which to me was the biggest change for ye. Because
that changed their whole philosophy.
Yeah, because you could always get at Dublin. You always knew there was a space in front of you. You always knew you were going to, you could get goals against them. But that changed everything. And what it did was there was huge sacrifice in it as well. Because if you remember the game, I think Connolly hit 4 bombs. Flynn hit 4 bombs in the first
8 points in the first
half. And when you take that out of it, then you have to take that element of brilliance out of certain players. And that's hard for a coach to do. So you have to go to Jeremy Connolly. I don't know how you do this or how you go about it, but you basically go, Jeremy, you're not allowed to take that shot, or you don't say you're not allowed, but you have to say, right, there's a better option here. That's a 1 in 5 maybe, where we can work it in, and it's 3 out of 5. And so there is change.
But you're right, Andy. And this is what we were talking about in our very first pod, talking about new coaches coming in and trying to get. Like Tyrone have been used to playing a more conservative style, and now all of a sudden Fergal Logan's coming in and saying to Ronan McNamee, you get the ball on your own square. I want you to kick a 50-yard kick pass. I want to get the ball up. And that's I haven't done that for years. And with Dublin, in James' first couple of years, 13, we won the All-Ireland, we won the league, we won everything playing this. It was like Harlem Globetrotters. We all loved it. It was like, we're going out and we're attacking from everywhere. And if teams want to go man to man, well, that's great. We'll take that. And then Donegal just completely outsmarted us and got the better of us. And then we changed their tactics, and it did become, if you look at the Dublin team that won in Jim's first All-Ireland in 2013 to the one that won the 5 in a row in 2019, it's chalk and cheese, the style of play. It's far more controlled. It's not better or worse. It's just, we became such a far more smarter team, I would say. And that was the coaches and the players buying into that. We would keep the ball a lot more, be a lot more patient. Some people might say that's not as exciting to watch or exciting to play, but we just wanted to be successful. But that's tactical innovation, and that's through the experience. And that's the challenge I'm saying for like Peter Keane last year. We go back to this. He tried to change his complete style of play in one match against Cork. Like that takes months and months and years to learn and perfect. And you know what I mean? And they were completely caught out. It was alien to all the players. And that was the challenge for Dublin, moving from that kind of free-flowing style of play. And we would have had so many conversations about, like I say, those shots that the guys scored, Flinner and Dermot Connolly, I think they were all outside the 45.
They were,
50 yards.
Yeah.
It was you can't rely on that consistently. No. So, and now Dublin work the ball into the edge of the D and shoot from 30 yards. So it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing change to see.
Does that, like that you're saying it can't happen overnight, but going from that whole Harlem Globetrotter style and those shots from outside the 45 to the 85% shooting efficiency. I know that's only a stat that we're throwing out from a couple of weeks ago, but you know how good Dublin became at their shooting efficiency and their decision making around shots. Is there anything that stands out, like a light bulb moment that clicked about, okay, we've got to change the way we're doing this here?
Maybe not one particular thing, but it was just, I always say this, the benefit we had was that we had depth in the forwards, that if you didn't do it, you were gone. So that's the every player in any county, all they want to do is play. So if the coaches tell you to do something and you're Conor McManus from Monaghan, Conor McManus doesn't need to really adhere to that. He can shoot from anywhere because he's a brilliant player. He knows he's Monaghan's best forward, and no one's really going to take his place. Same like David Clifford, again, these are probably bad examples because they are brilliant forwards, but they could take these shots and it doesn't really matter. There's not going to be punishment if they miss it because they know how good and important they are to the team. With Dublin, it was, if I didn't do it and started taking these crazy shots, well, Jim would just turn and go, well, you're not playing. Kevin McMahon was going to play instead, or Owen O'Gara, or Dean Rock, or Cormac Costello. So that was always the benefit that we had, that depth. If you didn't buy into it, you were gone anyway. So there's a bit of the players buying into it. There's also the fear of just you do what the coach tells you, or you're not going to play.
Yeah. But just going on to Paddy's point there, and just to not re-harping on the Mayo Dublin thing. But we talked a couple of weeks ago in the pod, and we were on about the wins and the losses and stuff like that. It'd be fascinating, actually, Tommy, for you to go back and look at the 2017 final, even if you just type in the scores from it.
I watched it back a half an hour ago.
And look at the scores.
Do you do anything else? No.
Yeah. Look at the scores that were scored from Mayo that day.
Yeah.
They were Conley, Flynn, scores.
Killian,
Jason Doherty.
Yeah.
Outrageous scores, yeah.
There were every score there was no tap overs. Where you looked at Dublin scores. Now, and we talked about the last few minutes of the games where you're getting tired, your decision making is down, and you're looking at where you're scoring from. And Dublin just kept scoring from the same spot. Where Mayo, with tired legs and tired bodies, had to keep trying to score these whirlies, and it just didn't happen.
It's not sustainable, is it? It's not. No. You won't consistently get them. You might have a day where they go over from everywhere, but it's not consistent, and it's not sustainable success to do it that way. But the funny thing, I know we kind of got off base with there, but that's tactics from other sports and taking it into the GAA, and it's brilliant to see because it just makes the game better. And that kind of closed mentality of that's their sport. You stick to that, stay in your lane. Like the best coaches are innovative. They bring new ideas. The best players take that on board. How do I get better? Tell me anything. Give me any insight for me to get better. Even the best guys, like Cluxton's the obvious example. He's still trying to get better. What other sports can I look at to get better? And you can see that across the GAA now. Some brilliant performances and brilliant coaches inputting that into the team. It takes time, and that's the challenge for the newer guys, and like a touch on Galway and Tyrone and places like that. But it's great to see.
Just on that 2017 All-Ireland final, there is a brilliant YouTube version of that game, which is just the shots, and it's about 28 minutes, the whole game, broken down to that. But when you're talking about that, in the second half of that game, Dublin started taking. Brian Fenton scored a point from 15 yards, and I think Kevin Miniman scores a point closer into goals as well. Lee Keegan scores that goal to send Mayo ahead. And I think the next shot that Mayo have, Aidan O'Shea is inches wide with a shot with the outside of his left foot from near the sideline.
Under the Cusack, yeah.
And you're underneath the post that day, and it's so close. It's so close. But Dublin weren't taking those shots in the last 15 minutes.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know, is that legs? What is that,
You get me emotional now, Tommy.
Andy was in flying form there, Tommy. You're after just like your stove at lunch.
I didn't bring up 2017. I wasn't going to mention it. I
didn't mention it. Andy, did you bring it up?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I just think that kind of sums it up, Tommy. And I think when you're looking at the innovation of what Dublin have brought to it, you're looking at the playmakers. We talked about Kilkenny. They gave him the ball. They literally gave him the ball. I remember one time.
Well, not that day. Lee Keegan, absolutely.
But we identified it, Tommy.
Okay.
We identified it. We identified that Lee didn't give him the ball. I think in 2016, in the first game, Jeremy Conley takes the sideline ball off Kieran Kilkenny, and you can just see the Dublin boys going. Look at the book at the bottom. He's telling you, we
weren't overly happy with that.
Yeah, he got grilled for that because Kieran Kilkenny's the ball handler. You give him the ball. Now Scully's the ball handler or Fenton, so you give them the ball.
That was an injury time sideline by Connolly in the 71st minute.
Yeah, so we identified Kilkenny. We could have put Lee on different players who were outstanding at the same time, but we identified Kilkenny on that year of being the main focal point for the Dublin attack, and it really did work for us. And I think he kept him to 8 possessions, scored a goal himself, but still Dublin and other fellas around the place that could do the job as well. But I think Kieran that day then, either by his own choice or by Jim, said, right, let's take Lee Keegan out of the game, and they just plonked him out on the wing or in the corner. And so there was thinking there as well.
He had an incredible performance that day, Lee Keegan.
He's an incredible player, you know, and he's still doing it. But that time, 15, 16, 17, when we played Dublin, it was like, right, Lee will mark whoever, and then everyone else has to do their own job. Yeah. So that was it. And
it's funny, and we talk about that. Like, it's like, he's an amazing player, and he was sacrificing his game. Like, we know how good he is going forward. And that's what we were talking last week about defenders now being asked to man mark and get tight and the art of defending and have that little bit of needle. I mean, you don't really see it that much anymore. Whereas Lee Keegan was totally unselfish in his play. I'm going to try and mark Dermot Connolly because he's brilliant for Dublin. And I know I could, if I just played my own game, I might be able to go up and score 3 or 4 points for play. But that was being hard. That was being a defender. That was making that kind of sacrifice for the team. And that's the challenge we had last week and what the first 3 rounds of the league. We're not seeing defenders do that anymore. We're seeing defenders who are great going forward.
I noticed the same with you. The way Lee did it for us, I'd always identify McCarthy as being your heartbeat in terms of he was the guy that always knew what to do, knew how to sacrifice his game, and then everyone else.
And like amazing players, but just amazing teammates. Like, just they do anything feel like, and that's what you're hoping to see going into the championship. Because if teams are going to play this way, they're going to play this open attacking football. You're going to need to have 2 or 3 defenders. Like, if you're going to win the All-Ireland, you're going to have to beat Dublin, and you're going to ask one of your full backs to go. You're going to mark Conor O'Callaghan, and you got to do that. Or if you're going to play Kerry, say Tyrone win the Ulster Championship, play Kerry in an All-Ireland semi-final, they're going to turn around to Rowan McNamee or Pádraig Campsey and say, "Listen, you're marking Clifford. Deal with it." And that's what defenders are going to have to do if you want to play this expansive style of play. Players are going to be asked to do that, and if they're able to do that, that would be such a huge advantage to that team. Imagine taking out the key scorer for someone else. That could win you the game. That could win you the All-Ireland. It very nearly won the All-Ireland for Mayo in 17 by what Lee did. Macker was amazing for us so many times, and with John Small and guys like that. That's what it takes, paying the price. And like I say, you've got to make sacrifices even to your own game. You might want to go forward, but that's ultimately what every team needs, those type of players.
You're listening to episode 4 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and Andy Moran, and we are about to get into our teams of the league. We're going to have a bit of fun here. So I think we're going to start off, Paddy, with your own team, if that's all right, if you're able to talk us through it.
This wasn't much fun trying to pick this. So we had the rules. So the rules was what? We couldn't have it all, maximum 3 from each team.
Yeah.
And try to pick a player from all the divisions. So a lot of research going in trying to find a good balance of this team. So I'll run through it quickly. In goal is Rory Beggan from Monaghan. And the reason being, it's kind of hard to pick a goalkeeper. No one's really stood out much, but I thought Rory was very good in terms of saves against Tyrone. But also what we touched on in the pod earlier in the week, he's kind of leading the charge with this new style of play. And one of the great images of the league is the Donegal-Monaghan game in injury time. It's a draw up in Ballybuffet, and Rory Beggan's playing midfield and he's being marked by the Donegal keeper, Sean Patton. So Beggan is very much to the forefront in that side of things, and he could be really solid for the league. And like, if Monaghan are going to have a good league, Rory Beggan, or a good championship, Rory Beggan needs to play well. So I've him in goal. I've Ronan McNamee from Tyrone as cornerback. Inspirational score for them the last day to draw with Monaghan and qualify for the league semi-finals. Again, he's the type of player Tyrone task him with marking the opposition's key forwards, and you can see he's starting to change his style of play as what Fergal Logan's asked him to try and start attacking, getting up the pitch, kicking the ball more. So I've Ronan in there. Chris McKaig, a fullback from Derry. Derry's defensive record, I know it's Division 3, but I think they only conceded 7 points in their first game, 5 points the next day against Longford. Derry are flying it, and Chris McKaig is a huge leader for them, always has been, and Rory Gallagher has him flying it. I've owned Rigney, the other cornerback from Offaly, obviously one of the road players that we touched on earlier. Offaly are just rejuvenated under John Mahon. It's brilliant to see, and he's been such a huge leader for them coming out from the back. And that's we're touching on successful teams in the league, getting that momentum. Are Derry going to win the Ulster Championship? They're not going to be favourites for it. Are Offaly going to win the Leinster Championship? They're not going to be favourites for it. But if they can get a good league and get promotion, and those two guys, Chris McKaig and Rigney, are definitely leading them forward. Half-back line is Paddy Durkin. You know, we all know him. He's been absolutely outstanding, picked up where he left off. Donald Kyogo from Meath, another one of these real leaders we spoke about. just marshals the mid defence, and he's such a key player for them. And then half-back of Paul Murphy on the other wing from Kerry. I was at the Dublin-Kerry game. He's the Kerry captain. He's always the key player in their defence. He's one of the most important players for them. He got 2 points that day, and he just led the comeback for Kerry. They were 7 points down, and he just said, right, we're going forward here. He scored 2 points in that third quarter, got Kerry back. And you might look back on that later in the year. That game was slipping away from them. That could be a huge turning point for Kerry. And that was just leadership from Paul Murphy and what he does best. So that's my backs. Will I go on? Or
I think what we'll do is,
backs?
Andy, I think we'll bring in your backs and just see where you're differentiating here. And I hope I have your right team up here, Andy.
You do.
You might run us through your team here.
You do. So
7 Mayo players.
Yeah. I tried.
David Clark in goal.
Paddy had 3 dubs. How many Mayo lads did Andy have? He only had one. One Mayo man.
Matty Ruan, very unlucky to miss out, but I just think the 2 guys in the middle of the field had to play. I'm skewed by the games I was at 100%. Paddy Durkin outstanding against Westmeath, and Kevin Maguire for Westmeath. That day, I think me and Paddy were talking about 1-to-1 marking, and he went man-to-man with Killian O'Connor. And listen, I have so much respect for Killian that Maguire was absolutely outstanding. So I just struggled. I know they didn't win a game, but I just struggled not to have him in there because he was so good on that day, and it was probably the best individual defensive performance I've seen. Similar to Christy McCaig, I've Brendan Rodgers in there for the same reasons. 1 point conceded at the full forward line against Cavan. 7 and 5 in the other 2 games. Absolutely outstanding. I think it'd be a shame not to put a Derry guy in there. Niall Morgan in goal instead of Beggan, just because, I don't know, I just think I like Niall Morgan better. But
you love Tyrone.
I do.
Jesus Christ.
I don't know why. No, one of the few, Betty.
I tell you, I would have put Morgan in goal, but he broke my jaw a couple of years ago, so I couldn't put him in. I can't give him that one.
Was that how your jaw got broken? Was it a challenge with Morgan?
It was, yeah. Morgan was playing fly goalie. I should have known he'd be out of his goal.
Yeah, so it was tight between himself and Beggan. Beggan up at the full forward line the last day against Moran against Tyrone when they were trying to get the equaliser. Nearly swung it for Beggan, but one of the others, and I think they're just leading the line. McNamee has been unbelievable for Moran. I think Hart has been the same. Paddy's talking about Paul Murphy.
You've Murphy as well.
Yeah. So he's talking about him. Diarmuid O'Connor in the middle of the field. I think he's been outstanding for Kerry. I think the game I was at against Galway, they didn't need to do much, but against Dublin, I thought. At that last 20 minutes, I thought he really up the speed.
I was at that game. He was brilliant against Dublin. I think he scored 2 or 3, but he definitely got 2 points. I think he might have got 3, but he was kind of leading the charge. And it's like, we asked, what's Peter Keane looking for from Kerry? He's looking for 2 or 3 players. We're talking about David Moore and not having probably the mobility to get around the pitch. There's a guy that's come in. Jack Barry was kind of doing that role, but I think Diarmuid O'Connor gives a little bit more going forward on the ball as well.
I think
he's so many possessions.
He's been really impressive. He's been really impressive. Yeah.
He's the number 1 midfielder now, I'd say, Paddy, there. You know, he's definitely going to start.
I just taking that, and actually, I don't have him on my team, so shit. I missed out on that one.
You both went for Michael Langan in midfield.
Yes.
He's a man who's really stood up as a leader over the last 3 weeks, 3-4 weeks.
Very similar to what we're saying about O'Connor. He's very comfortable on the ball. He's key to that Donegal style of play, that kind of smart on the ball, really comfortable, key in the transitions. He got obviously that amazing goal against Beggan, which was one of the big standout moments. So look, I probably, if Michael Murphy hadn't got injured, his performance against Tyrone the first day was outstanding. He only played 5 minutes against Monaghan, and he didn't talk out the last day. But like I say, Michael Langan stood up, so I had him. My other midfielder was actually Rian O'Neill. I didn't go for Diarmuid O'Connor. I thought Rian O'Neill's been brilliant from Armagh. And he'd been doing it, and he's I wouldn't say he was under the radar, but he's come up to Division 1 and he's played his on the ball, his leadership, real quality, athleticism. And like, exactly, I'm kind of looking at this going into the championship. If Armagh are going to have a good championship, Rian O'Neill will be, I would say he's going to be their key player.
He's the sort of player, Paddy, that you want to watch, isn't he? He's
got everything. He's got like like a lot of midfielders can have the athleticism, but they mightn't have the skill. Guys can have.
He can play anywhere.
Athleticism.
14, 11, 9, and the brother rushing, and he's interchanging with his brother.
He's a
Rushing
handful of full forward. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was my midfielders. I'd Langan.
It looks like Paddy's taking the Harlem Globetrotters approach here with his team. Langan
forwards there again.
Langan and Rian O'Neill, two exceptional.
This is when
attacking.
People pick their teams of the season or this team is never going to play together. So I'm not looking for balance. I'm not a coach.
No, do you know what you are? Do you know what you are?
There's best scorers everywhere.
Do you know you try to be the opposite to your old fella? Like you're be the opposite to your dad. Like so, he's trying to be the opposite to Jim Gavin. Like he's going, I'm going all out. I'm going all out. This is it. Like,
I was going to have Kieran Kilkenny playing full back. I was going to put Clifford a goal just to get him up.
Yeah, Andy, sorry, these are your half forwards.
I don't have an Armagh player on it, and the reason for it is that I just think they've been a sum of all their parts. Like so, if you see Stephen Campbell last week, outstanding. But you know, it's been so different nearly every game. Rory Grugan, Rian O'Neill, Oisin O'Neill. So I really love watching them playing, but it's just that's the reason we haven't had them on. So I went with Sam Mulroy from Louth. Again, listen, this is looking on stats more so than seeing him playing. But you're looking at a guy that's like scored 2 goals, you know, consistently throughout the league. I think Louth deserve to have somebody there. And he's been the main focus point for them getting to the league semi-final. And we're on about managers earlier like McGinley and these guys, but Hart has to take some recognition. They lose their first game, go and win the last 2, and now all of a sudden they're in the semi-final with the hope of getting promoted, which I'd say is their main task. Darren McCurry has been we've been kind of waiting for him.
Yes.
I think for the last couple of years, every time he's got the ball, I can just vision him getting the ball on the half-forward line and going backwards with it.
There's no doubt. There's no doubting his ability.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
He's a brilliant player to watch, and like I said, is he one of these guys? And that's the bounce of a new management team coming in, putting their arm around, and going, "Listen, Darren, we can see your quality. We're going to play to your strengths." Whereas maybe previously he's been asked to play a role. Like we touched on with Geaney playing wing forward for Kerry, it's like that's not their game. You know, you're not going to get the best out of him. And Darren McCurry definitely strikes me like someone. He wants to go forward. He wants to shoot. He wants to be a playmaker. And he's not on my team, but no, he's been impressive.
But I'm going to do my inner Joe Brawley here. I remember years ago talking to Pete Donnelly, right? And Peter Donnelly, who's in with coach with Tyrone.
Yeah.
He was just on to me about Darren McCurry, and this was a good while ago now. And he used to go, never leave the pitch. Like absolute bag of balls, works, bag of balls into the pitch, kicking. And it's lovely. And I just expected to see this forward that was just an all-out attack. But for the last couple of years, he's been getting the ball at the 45, kicking it 30 yards back. And I'm just thinking, this is not the guy that Peter Donnelly described to me. But now, chip flicking the ball, curling over the bar.
Yeah. That score alone probably got him in. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's just, I just think it's outstanding to see a young fella like that. And then Owen Cleary, his score rate has been 4 the last day against Cork, 7 in the middle game, 10 against Laois, and he's just been outstanding.
He's in both of your teams, lads. Yeah, it's even the leadership he's showing. It's scoring at key times. Like Kildare were playing well in that second game of the league, and Clare got that goal that dragged them back into it. But it's Cleary's points for me in the next 7-8 minutes.
A couple of bombs, like under big pressure.
Clutch points.
His sideline against Laois obviously got a bit of attention online and stuff like that. It's like, I think we needed to have someone from Clare. It was between himself and Tubridy, but as good as Tubridy was against Cork the last day, I think over the course of the first 3 games, that Tyrone Cleary's been massive for Clare and a huge part of their success to date. And it'd be interesting to see against Mayo now, because Mayo are that experienced team. They're going to man mark him. They're going to have someone to deal with him. It's probably going to be Paddy Durkin. And how can he get on? Because that's what Clare are striving to get to. They want to be a Division 1 team. They want to try and make an impact in the Munster Championship. That's what these players are going to need to stand up and do that. But so far, I think Owen Cleary's been brilliant. I had him on my team as well. Yeah.
Talk to us about your half-forward line then. You've gone for Niall Scully and Conor Callaghan. You dub.
Yeah, I've gone a bit biased there now. But I thought Con had to be in. I think he's been absolutely outstanding. Very quiet the first day. I don't think he scored the first day against Roscommon. And it was kind of, I remember you asked me about it, and I said he'll be back against Kerry, don't worry, and he was.
I think you said he'd score 1-4 or something. He scored 2-1 or something like that. Yeah,
2-1 or 2-2, I think. But he's been, and the same against Galway the weekend, another goal. He's just an amazing player. I'd have him with Clifford as probably the 2 top forwards. He's been a big impact. And Niall Scully, has just been brilliant for Dublin in all 3 of the games. I know it's 2 Division 1 players, but I'm just looking on the quality of their performances, how important they are to the teams. Dublin have had they're going to be happy with the league today. They've qualified for the semi. So that was my half forward line was Scully, Khan obviously at centre forward, and then Owen Cleary on the wing from Clare.
I think you had 7 of the same players in your team. You had 8 changes. The full forward line is somewhere that you both agreed on. So David Clifford. All three. David Clifford.
Oh, yeah.
Cormac Costello and Shane McGuigan. Talk to us about McGuigan. Like he would have caught the eye last weekend. A lovely forward for Derry.
He scored 220 in 3 games. That's catching the eye. And this is just, and not all for, like I think he's got 111 or 112 in play. Derry we're talking about how tight they are at the back, but the scores they're racking up as well. And that's, I know Rory Gallagher very well. I played with him when he was down in St. Bridget's. He would have actually a big influence on me as a coach. He was an underage coach at St. Bridget's when I was growing up. He loves a sharpshooter. He loves a guy who can score, and you can just see Shane McGuigan being the type of player he absolutely loves to coach. And Derry seem to just be playing the style of play that we're talking about that seems to be all the rage. You know, let's attack, let's get the ball to our key players. And his scoring has been phenomenal. And we're talking about Derry going for promotion. Can they get into Division 2? He's going to be a key player to get them over the line. But I think it'd be remiss not to have him in there. It's close. I thought Paddy Cunningham from Antrim was a notable. He was in the mix. Andy's mate. He had some great moments. David Tubridy obviously as well was outstanding for Clare. But I just thought McGuigan, his scoring rate, his efficiency, and just the story of he nearly emphasises how Derry are playing. I thought he definitely had to be in.
Andy, I have a question for you about David Clifford in a moment, but how have neither of you got Paddy McBurty on this team?
You can't put them all in. Put them all in.
I've unluckies here now. With McGuigan, for instance, I think Cormac Costello Clifford have to be honest. I think the two of them have to be honest. With McGuigan, so obviously he catches his eye last week, but you go back and you look at the other 2 games then and see what he scores: 2, 5, 7 points. Like it's amazing. But he scores then 8 against the Ulster champions from last year. Right, left foot. We're so used to seeing Shane Walsh doing it. To see someone else doing it is amazing. And you look at Derry, okay? So you have Rodgers and you have McCaig in the full back line, which gives you a really strong base straight away. You get this absolute gift from God from Australia and Conor Glass in the middle of the field, and all of a sudden you've got legs around the middle of the field that you haven't had for 10 years, and then all of a sudden McGuigan starts kicking points, 220 in 3 games in the league, and all of a sudden you're looking at Derry and they're in good shape, they're phically fit.
And Andy, I'm telling you, like nobody was looking at Cavan to win the Ulster Championship last year, and they came through. Derry, could they potentially get there? That's what Rory Gallagher is probably hoping for. But what you've seen today is huge progress from them. And like I say, they have the pieces of a really good team. Rory's a brilliant coach. So like I have 2 Derry guys in the team so far. I know that the league semi-final next week against Limerick now that they'd be favourites for. That should hopefully get them into Division 2. But it'd be interesting to watch them in the championship.
Just on McBurty, Tommy, on McBurty, absolutely outstanding. I think Shane Walsh has been outstanding for the 2 games since Kerry. I think he's really shown great leadership there. Obviously, I don't have Con on my team, Kieran Kilkenny on my team. Like I was thinking, how am I not putting these 2 guys on the team? But anyway, left him off. Matty Moran from Mayo has been Mayo's best player, really, but it just didn't. Jeremy O'Connor and Langan swung it for me. So there's been so many people. It's great to see McBurty back in good form. The leadership he showed in the last 2 weeks has been brilliant since Murphy got injured, and it's exciting. It's exciting leaving it for the Ulster Championship.
But I'm telling you, hey Andy, this is only after 3 games. There's still the league semi-finals to go. If McBurty goes out and swings over another 8 points against Dublin, that might change it. Yeah. But very unlucky. Like I say, the other 2, I'd Costello in. I think he scored 321 in the league so far. He's top scorer in the league, and you might think he's a Dublin player and. You know, that's kind of expected. Cormac's under pressure to perform.
Massive.
He's been around so long. Dean Rock's got a bit of a knock, so it's an opportunity. And you might think, do Dublin take the league seriously, or Cormac Costello's whatever 5 or 6 All-Irelands because he's been around? Does Cormac Costello take the league? This is essentially a trial for him. So I can guarantee you he's taking it seriously. He is under pressure to perform, and that's been the most impressive thing. And a lot of it was frees. The 113, he got the first day against Roscommon.
Yeah.
He scored 1-3 from play against Kerry, and he scored 5 points from play against Galway. So as well as the frees and his questionable penalty record, he stood up the week after and he scored the penalty against Kerry. But he is under pressure to perform, and that's why I wanted to have him in, because I thought he's been outstanding. And if Dublin are going to be successful, I think he's going to have a huge role to play through the summer.
On David Clifford, one thing that stood out to me is, and I don't know whether I'm reading into it too much, but he seems angry. And I know he's always played with a bit of bite and a bit of fire. But the one thing that stood out against Galway was goal, straight into Sean O'Shea. They're high-fiving, they're roaring, they're screaming. At the weekend, Paddy Clifford sets him up. The high-five again. It's an alley-hoop goal again at the back post. Are you seeing that in Clifford this year, or has he always had that bit of bite about him when he played football?
It's a Kerry thing for me, to be honest with you. It's not that this team is mature and they're so young, lads. I think we forget how inexperienced the team is. So that's why Moran and Gainey are important to Kerry, because everyone else around them is young. Like Paddy Clifford's a bit older, obviously, but he's
inexperienced.
He's inexperienced.
Inexperienced at this level.
So they've young players all around the place, and they can see last year. They can clearly see that Kerry are a better team than Cork. But by that inexperience and not killing out games and not creating them really good habits within your play, all of a sudden then you get into a dogfight against Cork and you lose. But like, you can see that from the Cork game last year, they've decided you have to develop these good habits. And it was said to me from someone at the game, another guy that was there reporting on the game, he said, David Clifford is going to win All-Ireland. It's just, when is he going to win them? So is this going to be the year? And I think what Kerry now are trying to develop, they're trying to develop good habits. And when you see them really enjoying a goal, really getting a good kick out, or pushing up, squeezing up with a kick out, I think that kind of buys into what you're saying about Clifford as well.
Okay. But I'd say, Tommy, I'd be surprised if he wasn't angry. And I'm surprised if Kerry weren't angry. Like, they threw away that game against last year's championship. They've had to sit for 7 or 8 months. Do you know what I mean? Point. I remember we lost that championship game against Donegal. We didn't lose a game for 7 years after that. I tell you, we were angry after that game. When you lose a game that you're a favourite for, and you feel you've underperformed and you feel you've been caught out, that is angry. And Dublin came back, I remember, in 2015, it was, we're putting this right. We were angry. So I'm not surprised to see that. The biggest change from Clifford I see, and we've seen him in the flesh market, Fitzsimons in the Dublin game, he's bulked up. There's no two ways about it. His technical ability is not in question. You could see that when he was 14, 15 years of age. This guy could kick scores from anywhere. But he's bouncing off tackles now. You know, where you might have been able to bottle him up, or like say Lee Keegan back in the day, or even in that game in Turles, you know, Fitzy's a strong guy, he's a fast guy, and you're getting hits on, but he's riding those tackles now, which gives him another strength to his bow, where you could have tried and out-muscle him or bully him. You can see he's definitely added that to his game. And the thing with someone like Clifford, and what we're touching on here, Kerry are going to give him the ball. Even if he's being double-teamed or triple-teamed by some teams, Kerry will hand him the ball. And if Clifford has the ball in his hands, I'd say 8 times out of 10, he's at least getting a shot off. And with his accuracy, he's probably scoring 7 of them. So he is just going to be a handful for anyone. The mentality, yes, he should be angry. Kerry should be angry. If they weren't, he'd be asking serious questions. But his physicality is a big thing as well. So he was one of the first players to put down this thing. And the reason I tell you, the hat-trick he scored the first day, it set the tone for the entire National League. It was brilliant. It was like we hadn't seen a football match, an inter-county game, since the All-Ireland final in December. 5 months later, it was just a breath of fresh air. Clifford scoring his hat-trick. We're like, football is back. And the whole National League is carried on from that. Every team was playing this attacking style of play. And that was kind of like the spark that lit it. So I had Clifford in straight away, as much as, yes, there's unfortunate people to miss out. It's like picking the All-Stars, Andy. There's always a few people who feel disgruntled, but that's why I had him in. Yeah.
Darren Moynihan is another man that I would have had in the missed out, I suppose. But like Niall Scully is obviously playing a similar enough role for Dublin, Paddy, and he's stood out so much as well. Éanna Brannock's been in touch. He picked the team. I actually think this is quite a good team. I actually have very little complaints to make about both of your teams. I think there's arguments to be made for all of the players. Éanna Brannock has gone for Sean Patton in goals. So a different keeper from the two of you. Lee Keegan, Chrissy McCaig, Oisin Mullins, Ryan McInnesby, Peter Hart, Paddy Durkin in the half-back line, Michael Langan and Emma Bradley of Derry in midfield. He's gone for Kilkenny, Con, and Shane Walsh in the half-forward line. And up front, an all-Ulster trio of Paddy McBurty, Shane McGuigan, and Paddy Cunningham. And Conor Noonan was in touch. He said Kevin Flynn and Kildare has to be in with a shout. Sean Quigley and Fermanagh needs to be in with a shout. And Darren McCurry has to be included. And another shout for David Tubridy as well off the back of last week too. So that's the team of the league so far from the football pod. We had a couple of other questions, lads, that we wanted to put to you. Who has been your bolter of the league? Andy, I might come to you first. Somebody who out of the blue impressed you out of nowhere.
I think I put that down as Derry, didn't I? I just think, Joe, I think Rory Gallagher has been criticised a lot in terms of his playing style since he left, since he took over the Donegal job himself and moved on to his own managerial career. But you could always see that there was quality there, and Paddy would actually know this better. I forgot about your St. Bridges link, actually, Paddy. But
he's a brilliant coach. Any player who's played under will tell you.
So like McGuinness and himself, I always thought that even their demeanor on the sideline, you were nearly intimidated by the two boys. Everything was meant. There was nothing done like just spontaneously. Everything was meant, like from warm-ups, like when you were warming up against them, like warming up, and you're on the opposite side of the pitch, even in a challenge match, to do something that would kind of throw you a tiny bit. Everything was thrown. He'd intimidate the other assistant coach, Gallagher. So there's always little sparks there with him. But as I said to you, the Derry team have just got a little bit of life from somewhere. Glass coming back definitely gives you a bit of life, because he was their golden kid since he was 14, playing for Watty Graham's, I think is the name of his club. He was there.
And McCrory Cup as well.
He was the guy that we're talking about for years. And then for him to be taken to Australia, like there's other Derry lads out there now. Are they tempted to come back? You get McGuigan. You always had the McCaig's there. You have Rogers there. You have the Schlock-Neil influence.
Yes.
And all of a sudden now you have a team. So they're my bolter, and I think they've done very well. They're looking great shape, better shape physically than they've been in years. So they've got a chance.
I only went for a player there.
Go for it,
Paul Donaghy from Toronto. Out of nowhere. I'd never even heard of him before. And has come in. He's tailed off a little bit in the last game, but his first two performances.
Yes.
Again, his opening performance, 10 points against.
Amazing.
Football was back that weekend. It was brilliant.
Yeah, exactly.
Best manager, lads.
Go, Paddy.
Two, Colm Collins with Clare, and I'm sure he's going to get a lot of plaudits over this. I'd love to see them get up. Division 4 7 years ago. And they're one game away from going to Division 1. Brilliant, his demeanour. He has the team playing. He has them. Like I touched this, maximising their. He's dragging every last inch out of that team. So that's brilliant to see. And I have to say, Andy's old friend, John Mahan. What a turnaround. Been around a long time. We're talking about people, McNamee coming back. John Mahan has been around a long time, and the hunger to go over there to Offaly. Rory's done a great job with Derry, but I thought John Mahan is exactly what we're saying, maximising the potential. Are they going to win the All-Ireland? They're not, but what's success for Offaly, and John Mahan has them probably one game away from getting that. So Mahan and Collins for me are the top two so far.
Yeah, Collins is for me. Mahan, Mahan is top man, gave me my debut, so I've great respect for him. But Collins, what he's done with Clare has just been amazing, if I'm being honest with you. It's like you have to think about it. They've lost their two best players. Gary Brennan and Gordon Kelly, who'd be the best man-marking defender, and be in the position they're in to look at the football counties they're taking out. So they've taken out Kildare, they've taken out Laois. They didn't beat Cork, but they've put them into third place in the league. That's amazing. And I, for one, really hope they don't get to Division 1.
Come on, Andy, really? Mayo in Division 1. Mayo don't care about the league.
I'll put on my headband here now if you're not careful. But I think Mayo should still win the game, but the achievement from Colm Collins has been amazing. So yeah,
honourable mention, Enda McGinley with Antrim as well.
Absolutely,
brilliant job for a new guy going in there. Again, same as the other guys, maximise their potential.
Talk about being a new manager in a year like this when you weren't able to train for so long and you were trying to pick a panel and get teams together. So yeah, fair play to them. And there's actually an interview with Colm Collins. If you're subscribed, so there's two ways of subscribing to the Football Pod here on with Paddy and Andy, you can subscribe to our own stream, which is the Football Pod of Paddy and Andy, or you can subscribe to OTB-GAA, where you get all of the GAA podcasts and Off the Ball. And there's actually an interview with Colin Collins that went up last night as well, worth checking out. It's with Joe Malloy. So, manager of the league there, we've done that. Just in a word, because we probably covered them already in your teams. Who's your best player? Paddy, who did you go for?
Best player? Who ddid I go for, actually? Go
Andy,
to Andy first.
Yeah, no, I went Clifford all day. I was lucky enough to see him in the flesh. Like I had the privilege to be in Tralee the day against Galway. He was just outstanding. I think the way the team kind of revolve around him, I think he's been brilliant. I don't think he touched the ball for 12 minutes against Dublin, first 12 minutes, and then was just outstanding. So he's the player. And what I like about these players, the likes of himself, Con, Kilkenny, McCarthy, all these good players, and particularly with Dublin, it might be something we come back. They want to play every minute. Do you know, it's not like we've 4 games to get ready here. I can't really side on the side of resting. I can see the thinking on it, but surely you want to play it to get your touch. And Clifford wants to play every minute of every game. I love that.
Paddy?
Actually, it was
Clifford as well. Okay.
I was thinking, I don't know out there. Yeah, it was Clifford.
Perfect. The biggest letdown. Who would you go for?
Tubridy and Cavan for me. You're looking at them to build on what they did last year. Particularly Cavan. It's a precarious position for the two of them now. In it, but you're really looking to push on, and they just haven't. And it's Cavan have 3 All-Stars there in their mix, and you'd be expecting a tiny bit more out of them. And for me, they've been just not where they need to be to really push on from where they were last year.
I had those 2 teams as well, but I actually put Cork in it as well. I know Cork are in a relegation game as well to drop out of the league again, and it's like the same as Cavan at Tubridy. What an amazing! I know Cork didn't win the Munster Championship, but they beat Kerry.
They had that moment.
Should be a boost and a moment and momentum to kind of go into this season. Cavan at Tubridy had 2 of their best days in nearly in their whole history. It's like, let's kick on. Let's hit the ground running, and it's been disappointing to see the kind of drop off, particularly when you see other teams like say coming through and maximising what they've got. So that's surprising.
It must be hard for counties like that though, because the depth just isn't there. So if you're missing a couple of players, so you're missing an All-Star nominee like Michael Quinlivan, or in Cavan, they would have had a lot of lads who actually went travelling the year that they won it. These are teams that had a lot of success at underage level at the start of the decade. Tipperary minor team obviously bet that Dublin team in 2011. Yeah. The Cavan side won 421 titles in a row, and they were building these teams, and eventually they peaked with their 2 provincial titles last year. With Cork, we've seen them come through with some really exciting underage teams. That under-20 team obviously that had so much success, but they haven't delivered yet on the big stage. So I think one thing that I definitely saw in Castlebar last weekend, Andy, was that the Meath depth was a million miles away from where Mayo's was. Like Mayo were playing maybe some 3rd string players or players in the edge of the panel. Meath were doing the same. They were given nearly debuts to a couple of under-20s, and the size, the power, the experience, it just wasn't there. So I think when these counties, they aren't necessarily blessed with 30, 32 players, 34 players of inter-county standard, and we're seeing that. The moment of the league, lads, what was it?
For me, it's the goal scoring. I think it's been brilliant. I think we did the point of the league.
Score of the week. Yeah.
The first pod, and we didn't even mention Clifford's goal.
Yeah, we didn't.
Yeah, but like that was just, I think Paddy summed it up lovely there. He just kind of, it's like the Bannister 4-minute mile. He scores a hat-trick. Next week, Conor McCarthy scores a hat-trick.
Yeah.
Langan starts running the pitch, scoring 2 goals that you couldn't see.
Like Messi running up the pitch.
Yeah, and like but it is amazing. You get this sense, okay, right, I'm 1-on-1 with the keeper. Why am I blasting the ball? You're taking it around. Turbot does it for Armagh. McCarthy does it, puts McGee, on his backside after Clifford does it. I think Clifford just kind of led the line with that first weekend, and then everyone then from it has just scored like beautiful goals. Even Menton's goal, the last day for Meath, was a super goal. So yeah, listen, I think it's just the goal scoring that's been happening over the last couple of weeks has been amazing.
Paddy?
I was to say the opening weekend. I said that, to be fair, the Ulster teams, the Ulster Championship has been, I suppose, challenged and ridiculed in the past of being dour and being defensive. And the opening weekend, the the Tyrone Donegal game that I thought was probably one of the best games of the league over in Healy Park. Set out the stall, we're attacking. Kerry's open display against Galway, like, Jesus, this is total football here. And then it just set the tone across the board. The scores from across all the divisions, the goals going in, the style of play. I know it's been covered across all sections of the media over the last couple of weeks. It's brilliant to see. Are we going to see it in the championship when the pressure's really on? Are teams going to go back into their shells? I hope not. I think the horse is bolted, and I think teams can see the benefit it has to their style of play. But that opening weekend, Kerry's display, and then the game between Donegal and Tyrone, I thought it was like we were starved of football. We were waiting for it and hoping the opening weekend was going to be great games, and we got it. And it's just carried on for the last 3 weeks. And what an end next week to look forward to some brilliant games across the divisions.
Absolutely. So that's gonna wrap up our league recap, lads. It's been a great 3 or 4 weeks. It's been the start of the podcast. We've been, you know, the football is back. We're all delighted. There's definitely a smile on my face over the last couple of weeks with it all being back. So we've got a week off next week with the matches, but the podcast will be back next Wednesday. I think next week we're going to look at the Division 1 and 2 semi-finals and relegation playoffs. We're going to look at some of the implications there in Division 3 as well, what's going to happen down there. Is there anything else that you want to mention before we wrap up here for this podcast? If anyone wants to get in touch or drop any questions in, you can email thefootballpod@offtheball.com, or I'll open up a comments box on our Instagram page as well, which is footballpod_GAA. So if you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, please do. And we'll see you next week. That's it for episode 4. Andy, Paddy, thanks a million.
Look, lads.
Thanks, Tommy. Thanks, Paddy.